I tend not to go into intentions. I just look at reality and describe it and say, this is what's happening. So you could end up with a scenario where, because of stagflation, the dollar as a global reserve currency comes under intense pressure. And it's that moment that is used as an opportunity to switch over to central banking digital currencies.
Well, so let me ask you, what is the relevance of Vladimir Putin being kicked out of the, removed from the World Economic Forum website? I mean, we're talking about financial currencies. We're talking about the World Economic Forum. It feels like I've got a bunch of points that seem like they're connected. The World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, the SWIFT payment system, Russia being, starting a war, then being booted. What's the connection here? I mean, was Russia involved in the liberal economic order? Is he not involved in that? Or
I don't think Putin is, but I think that this will be an opportunity for the introduction of, it potentially could be, I should say, for the introduction of central banking digital currencies, which I describe as vouchers.
But it sounds like what Putin is doing is going to help make that a reality.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that makes it sound like it's one big plot.
Well, you don't need to see. This is the thing. We don't need to worry about intentions just to understand what the consequences of these actions are.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's where people get stuck. They get stuck on intentions, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what Putin intended. If the consequences of kicking Russia out of the SWIFT system mean that you end up with this financial money supply division on the planet, you then have got these blocks, Eurasia and Oceania. And what that leads to is, if you can no longer trade with Russian banks, when you're buying Russian gas and you're Germany, and you can no longer buy from Russia because you can't pay them.
Bitcoin.
And already we see Bitcoin flooding into Ukraine to fund the opposition, right?
Yep.
Now, how do you control that? Because one thing we do know is Bitcoin isn't in the interests of the banking establishment. So that's where you then...
Or is it?
Well, you tell me. I think that what they would want to do is introduce central banking digital currencies. That's what they've told us they want. Yeah.
I think there's a good possibility when you look at the prominence of Bitcoin over the past 10 years, it would not be hard for a nation to gain enough control over the network to create faux centralization. A lot of people say, oh, that can't happen. I don't believe it. But what's the current market cap for Bitcoin? Do you know? Is it 1 trillion?
My guess is
maybe?
2.1 trillion. Let's find out. No, it's going to be less than that. 1.9 trillion.
You could have market manipulation, right?
Yep.
You can manipulate the market there.
We absolutely do. China's been doing it.
It's
like
1.93 trillion.
1.93
No, that's
trillion.
the global market cap of all crypto right now.
Of all crypto.
The
So
Bitcoin market cap is 832 billion.
832 billion. So let's go back 7 years. The market cap of crypto was substantially less. The U.S., NATO countries could have easily bought in and controlled more than 51% of the Bitcoin network, which would give them control over how it works effectively. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm trying to simplify it. The point is, it just requires immense managerial power. But from the early stages, we could see the true power of Bitcoin. I've long speculated and even told all of my crazy anarchist and libertarian friends, I'm like, what if you're buying into Bitcoin? What if that's the global currency? It's public ledger. Anyone can track. The AI systems, their computers, they'll figure out what your address is in seconds, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. I got to tell you, man, I have seen brilliant private investigatorial work from individuals. There's an individual who was doxxed in the UK. He was posting on social media. How did they find out who he was? They knew the sound of his voice. So they looked at the average. They took a bunch of his posts and then found the average time of posting. And they said, this shows the individual is in this region of the UK. Yeah. They then looked for a person who fit key details, background, age, interests, hobbies. A human being did all of that work. Imagine what a computer can do when you're doing transactions. They'll instantly know what part of the world you're in. From there, they break it down. They know what you're buying because they know what everyone else is buying. The Bitcoin ledger is publicly trackable. And when they talk about Zcash and Monero, which are two cryptos which are supposedly secure, we learned that the FBI was able to track Monero payments when they arrested that woman, Crocodile of Wall Street lady. Yeah, I think I'm not saying I'm a big fan of Bitcoin.
So you're talking about the privacy concerns on the ledger, but what you still can't do is control the supply. I mean, you can manipulate the price.
You can control the supply
of Bitcoin.
It's called the 51% attack. If you control at more than...
No, I mean the overall amount of Bitcoin in the world. once it's hit its maximum cap, right? You can't just print more Bitcoin once that's done.
Right. Bitcoin,
Unlike fiat currency.
but with a 51% attack, you can effectively do anything you want.
Yeah.
So if you control more than half of the nodes, then you basically tell the fork what to do. Now, of course, if you go too hard, you'll create a hard fork and it'll split the blockchain in half. We've seen that happen on accident before. What I'm saying is, I don't know if it's true. A lot of people say, no, Tim, calm down. This can never happen. But if the U.S. and Western powers, or even China and Russia, bought in very, very early on and have maintained growth of their Bitcoin nodes, they could absolutely control more than half the network, which gives them control of the entirety of the system.